The midday sun beat down on the cracked pavement of the bus stop where Elena sat, clutching a faded canvas bag. To any passerby, she was invisible, just another elderly woman in a worn cardigan waiting for a ride that was 20 minutes late. But inside her bag was a small, plastic bank card that she hadn't touched in 3 years. Her hands trembled slightly, not from the cold, but from a decade of accumulated fear. Elena had spent the last 40 years cleaning the offices of the city's most powerful men, scrubbed the floors of marble lobbies, and emptied the trash of people who didn't know her name. A few feet away, Julian stood checking his gold watch. Julian was 34, the CEO of a tech firm that had just gone public, and the kind of man who measured his life in minutes and profit margins. He was only at this bus stop because his luxury sedan had blown a tire a block away, and his assistant was stuck in traffic. He looked at Elena with a flicker of impatience, annoyed by the way she was staring at the ATM across the street as if it were a monument to a forgotten god. "Is it broken?" Julian asked, his voice sharp and polished. Elena looked up, startled. "The machine," he clarified, pointing his chin toward the ATM. "You've been staring at it for 10 minutes. Elena offered a small, shy smile. "No, I'm just gathering my courage. I haven't checked my balance in a long time. I was afraid there would be nothing left." Julian let out a short, cynical laugh. "In this economy, there's usually nothing left for anyone. If you're looking for a miracle, you're at the wrong street corner, ma'am." He wasn't trying to be cruel, he was simply disconnected from a world where $20 could be the difference between a meal and a prayer. Elena stood up, her joints popping. "I just want to see my balance," she whispered, more to herself than him. She walked toward the machine with a heavy, deliberate pace. Julian, driven by a mix of boredom and a strange, subconscious curiosity, followed a few steps behind to use the machine after her. He watched as she inserted the card with shaky fingers. He watched her squint at the screen, her lips moving in a silent prayer. He expected to see a low balance warning or perhaps a few $100s from a pension. He was already rehearsing a polite way to offer her a $50 bill just to soothe his own conscience for being late to his meeting. When the screen flickered to life and the numbers appeared, Elena didn't move. She didn't gasp. She simply went still. Julian, leaning in with a smirk ready to offer his charity, glanced over her shoulder. The smirk froze. His heart skipped a beat, then began to thud against his ribs. The balance didn't show $40 or $400. It showed 8 digits. Over $12 million sat in a basic savings account, stagnant and untouched. Julian laughed, a dry, incredulous sound. "This has to be a glitch," he stammered, his professional composure shattering. "Lady, you've hit a system error. You need to call the bank before they realize the mistake." Elena turned to him, her eyes brimming with tears that weren't born of joy, but of a profound, aching relief. "It's not a mistake, young man," she said softly. She explained that for 40 years, she had lived on the bare minimum, working 3 jobs and walking miles to save on bus fare. She had been the invisible woman in the offices of men just like Julian. But she had a secret. Every time a wealthy executive threw away a stock tip in the trash or discussed a startup in the elevator, Elena listened. She didn't buy jewelry, she bought shares. She didn't go on vacations, she reinvested dividends. She had lived like a beggar while building a kingdom, all for one specific reason. Julian listened, his mouth slightly open, as the woman he had pitied moments ago dismantled his entire worldview. She told him about her son, who had passed away decades ago because she couldn't afford the experimental treatment he needed. She had made a vow that day, she would never be helpless again, and more importantly, she would ensure no one else in her neighborhood would be either. The $12 million wasn't for her. She still lived in the same rent-controlled apartment. She still wore the same cardigan. "I just wanted to see if there was enough to finally build the clinic," Elena said, wiping a tear. "I've been waiting for the number to hit 10 million. I didn't realize I had surpassed it." Julian looked at his own reflection in the ATM screen, then back at the woman beside him. He thought of his penthouse, his sports cars, and the emptiness he felt every Sunday night. He realized that while he was chasing a balance to prove his worth to the world, This woman had built a legacy to save it. As the bus finally pulled up, Elena tucked her card back into her bag. Julian reached out, not to give her money, but to steady her arm as she stepped onto the bus. "Wait," he called out as the doors began to close. "Why did you keep working? Why keep scrubbing floors when you were already a millionaire?" Elena looked at him through the glass, a peaceful smile on her face. "Because, Julian, the floor doesn't care how much money you have. It only cares if you're willing to do the work. Don't let your balance become the only thing people see when they look at you." The bus pulled away, leaving the young millionaire standing alone on the sidewalk. He looked at the ATM, then at his gold watch, and for the first time in his life, he felt truly poor. He didn't call his assistant. He didn't go to his meeting. Instead, he started walking, looking at the people he usually ignored, wondering how many other invisible giants were walking among them, and realized that true wealth isn't what you gather, but what you have the power to change. The story of Elena became a legend in that city, not because of the money she had, but because of the heart that stayed humble enough to wait for the bus.